The Trump administration has another stock soaring, all from a federal investment. Luke Lango with InvestorPlace shares a list of 3 stocks with potential of getting future attention and investment from the White House. Luke, so glad you're here today. Before we get to your list, let's just talk about what's happening with this latest stock to get an investment from the federal government.
Yeah, USA Rare Earths, ticker USAR, is the latest to win a White House investment. $1.6 billion in cash, $1.3 billion in debt financing. The White House is taking a 10% stake. And it's really interesting because it's a follow-up on the MP investment that happened over the summer, right? The White House took a big stake in the rare earth miner MP, and everyone thought that was their national champion. And now, here's their second rare earth investment in USA Rare Earths, which was pretty easy to see coming because there are pretty much only 2 companies in America that have the potential to scale really big rare earth mining operations and magnet manufacturing operations. The first is MP and the second is USAR. And as you mentioned, both stocks, as a result of the White House involvement, they pretty much 3x'd in a matter of a month or two. I think MP 3x'd in 2 months and USAR went ahead and 3x'd in a month. About, in December 20th, 19th, around there, it was a $10 stock, and yesterday we were approaching 30. So pretty big moves in these otherwise unknown rare earth mining stocks.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I talked about that on the show back at December 20th when we had a video come out. But there's a bigger story here that Luke and his team at InvestorPlace have really been diving into. And that's which rare earth stock, which rare earth company could be next to get that White House investment. You can scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get Luke and his team's full research on the different companies that are really having that huge potential of getting the interest and investment from the White House. And Luke, I'm so thankful you're going to be sharing 3 of those names with our viewers here today. These are the companies that could be next to get that interest from the White House. I do have one quick follow-up question on MP. I know this is a second rare earth company. Like you said, a lot of people thought that the only investment the White House was going to make was in MP. So we saw MP react a little bit to this USAR news. Is this good news for MP, or what does this mean for MP investors?
Yeah, so the bear thesis, the reason you saw the negative reaction in MP stock was that MP was selected as the national champion for U.S. rare earths back in July of 2025. The big story here, obviously, is rare earths are mission critical, essential to the build out of artificial intelligence. Whether it's data centers, you need a bunch of motors and magnets, or humanoid robots, or physical AI devices. Rare earths are everywhere in the AI complex. China controls 90% of the market. We need to break that dependence, so we need to develop our own domestic source of not just rare earth mining, but also magnet manufacturing. And MP was selected as a national champion. Okay, so that was the bull thesis on MP for 6 or 7 months until this week when the White House said, okay, here's our second national champion. It's not a monopoly, it's a duopoly. And so MP stock got hit on that. And that's all fair, and I get that. But I think it's overdone because I think the big takeaway is that the White House, the U.S. government, is throwing so much support behind the creation of a very, very, very large domestic rare earth supply chain that the pie is going to grow so much that it doesn't matter if MP's got a share with USAR. I'd rather have MP be a duopoly in a massive domestic rare earths industry than a monopoly in a not so massive domestic rare earths industry. So I think the negative reaction in MP is overdone. I'm bullish on both MP and USAR. They are our national champion duopoly to lead us to breaking that rare earth Chinese dependence and actually creating a really large domestic rare earth supply chain. Now, the Greenland stuff also comes into play here because that's what the Greenland stuff was all about, was getting into the rare earths. They have a huge ice field up there that is beneath the ice field is just a bunch of rare earths, like a ton of rare earths just waiting to be mined. Now, the details of the deal are not super clear right now, but it does appear, early reporting suggests that some of the arrangement is we get to go up there and we get to mine those rare earths. Who's going to do that? MP. Who's going to do that? USAR. And they're going to come back to their magnet manufacturing facilities here in the US, and they're just going to get a huge boost there as well. So I think it all comes together to say both these stocks are potentially really big winners, not just this year, but probably for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential growth ahead for these companies as they build out that mining network across the US. Now, it's not just rare earth stocks that we're talking about today. The US, the White House in particular, is really starting to make some big investments, not just in rare earths. There's also lithium. We saw that investment in LAC, and also into big tech. We saw that investment into Intel as well, too. So the names on your list kind of follow that trend, right?
Yeah, they do. I think the White House is showing us their playbook, right? I mean, we are in a new era of a technological republic. Alex Karp wrote the book, the CEO of Palantir, kind of saying that the private sector and the public sector need to team up to really win the AI race, to really further the U.S. economy and beat China in this race to artificial superintelligence, artificial general intelligence, whatever you want to call it. And the playbook is they're not just making one bet in one sector. They're making multiple bets, right? Nobody really saw the USAR thing coming, but the fact that they did that means they wanted 2 bets in rare earths. So why not take 2 bets in chip manufacturing as well? Right? They have the Intel bet going, but I think that's why the next big move they could make is going to be with a stock called Global Foundries. Ticker is GFS. Now, Intel, they make the AI chips in America. They're cutting edge. They're, at the bleeding edge of this technology. GFS, not so much, but they make the boring chips, and the boring chips are just as important. The boring chips are the stuff that can go into defense applications. They can go into jets. They can go into cybersecurity stuff. These non-AI chips are just as important as the AI chips, and GFS is the biggest manufacturer of them in the United States. So if the White House is doubling up on rare earths, why not double up on chip manufacturing as well? They got the stake in Intel. I think GFS could be next. That stock has been on a pretty nice run over the last few weeks, and I think that run can continue. It's a really, really cheap stock still.
Yeah, it's such an interesting name, and one I don't think we've ever talked about on the channel before. So I love to hear when a new name comes up. What makes you think this one over the different chip manufacturers that might already exist in the US? What makes this one kind of stand apart from others that might potentially catch the interest of a White House investment?
Yeah, so GFS is bigger than a lot of the chip manufacturers out there in the United States. And the biggest part is they have a close tie-in with defense applications. That clearly the Trump administration wants to push more military and defense spending. That's a huge priority. The proposal to increase the defense budget by 50%, $500 billion in fiscal 2027. So, I mean, this is a North Star. It's becoming a North Star, and I think it's becoming a North Star globally. So I think that's why GFS, they have a really close tie to defense applications and big defense companies and defense contractors, not to mention Trump is capping buybacks and dividends for those big players, as well as putting a cap on salary or compensation for their top execs of $5 million per year. So he's just getting really involved in that sector, which tells me he's going to want to back it up with the chips that power a lot of that stuff.
It's a good potential. Like you said, the stock has been on a recent run. It's kind of more towards its high right now. Does that scare you away from any stock when we're having these conversations about how much future growth could these stocks see?
No, because the data suggests that what the most likely thing a stock does after it hits all-time highs is hit more all-time highs. And this is a momentum market that the stocks that have been screeching to all-time highs have been screeching all-time highs for 2 years now. You've seen the memory stocks that have just gone absolutely on fire. You've seen the nuclear stocks continue to be on fire. You've seen rare earth stocks continue to be on fire. So when I look at a stock that's hitting all-time highs, I'm not afraid of that in this market. There are some markets where you do want to be afraid of that, not in this market, not with the tailwinds that are behind a lot of these stocks. They feel durable. They feel like they have a lot of runway left.
Very good. Well, we talked about chips. Let's move on to the second name you have for us, and it's not necessarily in that rare earth sector either.
Yeah, so this one is nuclear. That I think, another big thing that the Trump administration is doing is prioritizing nuclear energy. They're prioritizing energy just in general. I think that's what the Venezuela thing was all about too, all the oil and gas down there. A lot of their actions are we need energy for our AI build out. It's a huge bottleneck in the construction of AI data centers. And then you get weather events like we're seeing right now across the country. There's a lot of strain on energy in the United States. So we need more energy, and the Trump administration has prioritized nuclear energy. His energy secretary, Chris Wright, is from the nuclear industry, has been cutting red tape left and right. And funnily enough, he's not just from the nuclear industry. The very nuclear company he is from is Oklo, ticker OKLO. So I think, you got the The energy secretary used to be at this company. This company was chaired by Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI and very close with the White House and doing the Stargate project, the Trump administration. They are part of the pilot projects to create those small modular reactors and get them up and running by July 4th of this year. So there's a lot going on with Oklo and the government, a lot of people connections and project connections, and it lines up with the government's prioritization of nuclear energy. I think that Oklo is sort of the next company that could win an investment, especially when you look at the playbook. MP, not this huge operational giant. It's a startup, really. Same with USAR. They're startups that need cash. So the White House is coming in to startups that it believes in and giving them the cash they need to succeed. That's Oklo. Oklo's a startup. They're just getting off the ground, breaking ground on their first SMR or their first nanoreactor, and they need the cash to succeed long term. The White House gives it to them. That's a stock that could really, that's why you saw MP 3X. That's why you saw USAR 3X. They were just one big cash infusion away from realizing their long-term potential. That's where Oklo is. That's a stock that has been hot, but it's pulled back quite a bit. And I think the pullback is a pretty attractive entry for a stock that I think is a really high probability candidate of winning some White House money.
Yeah, I feel like you can't talk about Oklo without also talking about SMR. Why Oklo over SMR? Do you think that NuScale falls in that same category potential as Oklo?
Yeah, I mean, again, maybe they double up. They doubled up on rare earths. I think they're going to double up on chips. I think they might double up on lithium. Why not double up on nuclear? So I think they could go Oklo and then SMR, but who is my higher probability candidate? It's going to be Oklo because of the people connections. I mean, Energy Secretary Chris Wright, that's as powerful a connection as you're going to get. Trump's going to look at Chris Wright and say, hey, who do you trust the most in the nuclear sector? Is he going to say the company I used to compete with or the company I used to be with?
Interesting. Okay, one other question on nuclear before we move on, and that's, have we seen the White House, have we seen the government make an actual investment in any kind of nuclear company? I know we've seen that red tape cut. We've seen a lot of prioritization of helping to clear the way for nuclear build, but have we seen any direct investment yet in the nuclear space?
We've seen the Cameco Westinghouse. So Westinghouse did a big deal. It wasn't an investment, but it was a partnership where the government and Westinghouse, which is majority owned by Cameco, ticker CCJ, the government and Westinghouse teamed up to create a bunch of, or plan to create a bunch of nuclear big reactors over the next, I think, 5 to 10 years. So that was the biggest deal we've seen so far. It wasn't an equity investment. It wasn't debt financing. It was a JV, really. But still, that's a pretty big deal. Cameco, CCJ, that stock got a big lift off of that. That's been another big winner here. The White House can invest in Cameco. It's not a U.S. company. So they're going to invest in the U.S. company, which in my opinion is Oklo.
Yeah, I agree with you, Luke. I think the pullback in Oklo is really attractive right now for a stock that seems to have a lot of potential. It's not quite there yet with pulling in the revenue, but with potential investment on the horizon or just potential growth, I think this is a good one. And it's the one I want to add to Bridget's buys. This is my watch list at MarketBeat.com. I think this is a really great pick for right now, especially. This last name that you have on the list for our viewers today, though, is really interesting. It's one several of our viewers have had questions about. I want to share, this is another sector that we're kind of getting into on this list, but you have a full report out right now that really tracks all of the different areas the White House might be getting involved in with an investment in the future, really tracking into where could that money go and flow and how could that pay off in the stock price for investors. So click the link or scan that QR code again if you want to check out Luke's full report at InvestorPlace. It's really interesting and it's another way to dive deeper into these stocks. All right, Luke, let's get to the last name. What is this last company and last kind of sector that we're going to?
So the last stock on the list for me is Energy Fuels, ticker UUUU, 4 U's. There are a lot of elements to the Energy Fuels bull thesis, but the one I want to focus in on right now is why they might win a White House investment. I think it comes down to their White Mesa mill in Utah. It is the only conventional uranium/rare earth mill in the country up and running right now. And so if indeed they want to the government wants to move fast on this, which I think speed is of the essence here, right? USAR, we talked about, well, they have the Round Top project in Texas. They have their Stillwater manufacturing plant in Oklahoma. Those are all plans. They aren't up and running yet. It's 2028 is the earliest those things will kind of start producing stuff. If the government wants to move faster than that, then Energy Fuels is the way to go. I think they could buy a stake in Energy Fuels. They could turn White Mesa into this kind of sovereign processing hub for the entire industry. They also just made a big, I think it was a $300 million acquisition of Australian Strategic Materials to create this sort of global mine to metal champion, because that's the big thing. There are two components of the rare earth story: is you got to get it out of the ground, but you also got to manufacture it. You got to turn it into magnets, something usable. MP does that, USAR does that, and who else is doing that now? Energy Fuels. So I think there is a high probability chance that you see the White House make a move here because they want speed to be the name of the game as we are in this race with China to break that dependency.
Yeah, and it's also a urgency of that energy demand and need in the U.S. too, which has more and more investments coming in these different areas too. I think what is interesting about this one, and I know I asked this question with the first pick that you had for us, this stock is already up almost 350% in the last year. Do you see another 3x potential in this one? And how long might that take?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the market cap on this is just over $5.5 billion. That's pretty small for a company that, I think this industry gets into the trillions of dollars. I think the whole rare earth complex, uranium complex, I think that gets into the trillions of dollars when you look at the just amount of demand you're going to need to create ubiquitous AI, especially physical AI devices. So you got a $5.5 billion company that's operating what I think is going to be a $1 trillion industry, and they're going to be one of the three titans of the industry. Yeah, the market cap at scale could be a lot bigger than $5.5 billion, maybe $550 billion. So there's a lot of upside potential in Energy Fuels. If you look at the trailing PE or price to sales and all that stuff, they're going to look awful. But you do not judge a stock with enormous long-term growth potential by what it did over the last 12 months. You judge it by where it could be over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think with Energy Fuels, that could be a very good place. Just like MP, just like USAR, what they are missing is a massive cash infusion to turn the dream into a reality. They get that from the White House, and this is the type of stock that has a lot of octane, a lot of fuel. You get that, you remove that huge operational risk, and boom, this is a high octane one.
In the right conditions, with the right investment, anything is possible for these stocks, and that's the potential that we're looking at here. Again, Luke and I had a much deeper conversation on the long-term potential of these stocks back in December, right before USAR really took off and really fulfilled that exact story we just talked about. Make sure to watch that video if you missed it over the holidays.